What is Maven? Maven is a project management and comprehension tool. Maven provides developers a complete build lifecycle framework. The development team is easily able to automate the project's build infrastructure in almost no time, as Maven uses a standard directory layout and a default build lifecycle. 2. What are the main features of Maven? Some of the main features of Maven are: simple to use. Maven provides easy project settings that are based on genuine practices. Fast. You can receive a fresh project or module that began in fewer seconds in Maven. Easy to learn. Maven usage and commands are pretty easy to learn across all projects. Therefore, ramp-up time for new developers coming onto a project is very less. Dependency management. Maven provides superior dependency management, including automatic updates and transitive dependencies. Multiple projects. You can easily work on multiple projects at the same time by using Maven. Huge library. Maven has a large and growing repository of libraries and metadata to use out of the box. For what does the build tool? Generates source code, if the auto-generated code is used. Generates documentation from source code. Compiles source code. Packages compiled code into a jar or zip file. Installs the packaged code in the local repository, server repository, or central repository. Why should one use Maven? It aids in setting up the project very quickly, and it avoids complicated build files like build.xml. The pom.xml file is at the core of Maven. Pom.xml is a collection of dependencies of your Java project which one can specify to Maven. After this, Maven will download all of them from the internet and store it to some repository, i.e. local repository, central repository, and remote repository. It helps to bundle all the jars in your package, i.e. in your war file or EAR file, because all of them will be stored in the repository. So next time wherever you install this application, that repository will be used for any dependencies lookup. In this way, your deployment file will be very light. Mention the steps for installing Maven on Windows. Maven can be downloaded and installed on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS platforms. To install Maven on Windows, you need to perform the following steps. Download Maven and extract it. Add Java_home and Maven_home in the list of environment variables. Add the environment path in Maven variable. The last step is the verification of Maven by checking its version. What does it mean when you say Maven uses convention over configuration? In the case of configuration, developers have to create the build processes manually, and they have to specify each and every configuration in detail. But Maven uses convention where the developers need not create the build processes manually. Also, for convention, users do not need to specify the configuration in detail. Once a developer creates a project in Maven, then Maven will automatically create a structure. Developers just have to place the files appropriately. There is no need to specify any configuration details in pom.xml file. Note: this is an important Maven interview question that you must know. 8. What are the aspects Maven manages? Maven provides developers ways to manage following: builds, documentation, reporting, dependencies, SCMs, releases, distribution, mailing list. Nine. How do you know the version of MVN you are using? Type the following command, MVN version. What is POM? POM stands for Project Object Model. In Maven, it is a fundamental unit of work and it is an XML file. You can find it in the base directory of the project. It consists of information about the project and various configuration details used by Maven to build the project. 11. What information does POM contain? POM contains the following configuration information: project dependencies, plugins, goals, build profiles, project version, developers, mailing list. What is Maven artifact? An artifact is a file, normally a jar that gets deployed to a Maven repository. A Maven build creates one or more artifacts, such as a compiled jar and a source jar. Each artifact consists of a group ID, an artifact ID, and a version string. The three together uniquely identify the artifact. A project's dependencies are specified as artifacts. What is the Maven build lifecycle? A build lifecycle can be defined as a well-defined sequence of phases. It clearly defines the order in which the goals are to be executed. Each build phase contains a sequence of goals. If one lifecycle is executed, all build phases in that lifecycle are executed. If a build phase is executed, all build phases before it in the predefined sequence of build phases are executed. Note: this is another important Maven interview question that you must know. Name the three build life cycle of Maven. The three build life cycles are: clean, cleans up artifacts created by prior builds; default, used to build the application; site, generates site documentation for the project. What is the command to build your Maven site? Type the command mvn site. What would the command mvn clean do? This command deletes the target directory with all the build data before starting the build process. What are the different phases of a Maven build life cycle? Following are the phases of Maven build life cycle. Validate the project and check if everything is correct and all necessary information is available. Compile. This phase compiles the source code of your project. Tests the compiled source code by using a suitable unit testing framework. These tests should not require the code to be packaged or deployed. Package takes the compiled code and packages it in its distributable format. Integration test processes and deploys the package if possible into an environment where integration tests can be run. Verify runs any checks to verify the package is valid and meets the required quality criteria. Install installation of the package into the local repository. This is done to use it as a dependency in other projects locally. Deploy done in an integration environment or release environment. Here the final package is copied to the remote repository for sharing with other developers and projects. What is a goal in Maven terminology? A goal represents a specific task that contributes to the building and managing of a project. It is bound to 0 or more build phases. A goal that is not bound to any build phase could be executed outside of the build life cycle by invocating it directly. What would the command mvn clean dependency copy dependencies package do? This command will clean the project, copy the dependencies and package the project, executing all phases up to package. What phases does a clean life cycle consist of? The clean life cycle consists of the following phases: pre-clean, clean, post-clean. What phases does a site life cycle consist of? The phases in site life cycle are pre-site, site, post-site, site deploy. What is build profile? A build profile is a set of configuration values that can be used to set or override default values of Maven build. Using a build profile, you can customize build for different environments such as production and the development environments. What are different types of build profiles? Build profiles are of 3 types. Per project defined in the project pom.xml file. Per user defined in Maven settings XML file and hashtag 40, %user_home %/.m2/settings.xml and hashtag 41. Global defined in Maven global settings XML file and hashtag 40, %m2_home %/conf/settings.xml and hashtag 41. How can you activate profiles? A Maven build profile can be activated in the following ways. Explicitly using command console input. Through Maven settings. Based on environment variables, user/system variables. OS settings, for example, Windows family. Present/missing files. What is a Maven repository? A repository is a place, i.e. a directory where all the project jars, library jar, plugins or any other project-specific artifacts are stored, and this can be used by Maven easily. What types of Maven repository? Maven repositories are of three types. Local. Maven local repository is a folder location that is present on your machine. It is created when you run any Maven command for the first time. Maven local repository is a location where you can find your project's all dependencies, library jars, plugin jars, etc. Central. It is a repository provided by the Maven community. It contains a huge collection of commonly used libraries. When Maven does not find any dependency in local repository, it starts searching in central repository using the following URL: http://repo1.maven.org/maven2. Remote. Sometimes, Maven is not able to find a mentioned dependency in the central repository as well, then it stops the build process and an output error message is displayed on the console. To avoid such a situation, Maven provides the idea of remote repository, which is nothing but the developer's own custom repository containing required libraries or other project jars. Can you tell me the default location of your local repository? /m2/repository. Tell me the command to install jar file in local repository. mvn install. Is there a particular sequence in which Maven searches for dependency libraries? Following is the search pattern. Search for dependency in the local repository. If not found, move to step 2, else do the further processing. Search for dependency in the central repository first. If not found and the remote repository is mentioned, then move to step 4, else it is downloaded to the local repository for future reference. If a remote repository has not been mentioned, Maven simply stops the processing and throws an error, unable to find dependency. Search for dependency in the remote repository first. If found, it is downloaded to the local repository for future reference, otherwise Maven is expected to stop processing and throws an error. What are the uses of Maven plugins? Maven plugins are used to create jar file, create war file, compile code files, unit testing of code, create project documentation, create project reports. What are the types of Maven plugins? Maven provides the following two types of plugins. Build plugins. They come into picture during the build and should be configured in the build/element of pom.xml. Reporting plugins. They get executed during the site generation and they should be configured in the reporting/element of the pom.xml. When does Maven use the external dependency concept? Maven dependency management uses the concept of Maven repositories: local, central, remote. Suppose dependency is not present in any of remote repositories and central repository, then in such case Maven uses the concept of external dependency. What are the things that you must define for each external dependency? External dependencies, library jar location, can be configured in pom.xml in same way as other dependencies are configured. First, specify group ID the same as the name of the library. Then specify artifact ID the same as the name of the library. Thirdly, specify scope as a system. Lastly, specify the system path relative to the project location. What is archetype? An archetype is a Maven plugin whose task is to create a project structure as per its template. What is the command to create a new project based on an archetype? Type the following command: mvn archetype generate. What is snapshot in Maven? Snapshot can be defined as a special version that indicates a current development copy. Unlike the regular versions, Maven checks for a new snapshot version in its remote repository. Maven does it for every build. What is the difference between snapshot and version? In the case of version, if Maven once downloads the mentioned version, say Data Service 1.0, it will never try to download a newer 1.0 available in the repository. To download the updated code, the Data Service version is then upgraded to 1.1. In the case of snapshot, Maven will automatically fetch the latest snapshot, Data Service 1.0 snapshot, every time the team builds its project. What is a transitive dependency in Maven? Transitive dependency is nothing but to avoid the need to discover and specify the libraries that your own dependencies require, and including them automatically. What does dependency management mean with respect to transitive dependency? It simply means to directly specify the versions of artifacts to be used when they are encountered in transitive dependencies. For example, Project C can include B as a dependency in its dependency management section and directly control which version of B is to be used when it is ever referenced. How Maven handles and determines what version of dependency will be used when multiple versions of an artifact are found. If you find two dependency versions at the same depth in the dependency tree, then you use the first declared dependency. This is nothing but dependency mediation. What is the dependency scope? Name all the dependency scope. Dependency scope typically includes dependencies as per the current stage of the build. The various dependency scopes are: compile. This scope indicates that dependency is available in the class path of the project. It is the default scope. provided this indicates that the dependency is to be provided by JDK or web server/container at runtime. Runtime. This scope tells that you don't need dependency is for compilation but you need it for execution. Test. This scope states that the dependency is only available for the test, compilation and execution phases. System. This scope indicates that you must provide the system path. Import. This scope is only used when the dependency is of type POM. This scope tells that the specified POM should be replaced with the dependencies in the POM's dependency management section. What is the minimal set of information for matching dependency reference against a dependency management section? Group ID, artifact ID, type classifier. Is it possible to refer a property defined in your pom.xml file? To refer a property that is defined in your pom.xml, the property name uses the names of the XML elements that define the value, with POM being allowed as an alias for the project element i.eroot. So $pom.name points to the name of the project, $pom.version refers to the project version, $pom.build.final name refers to the final name of the file created during the build project packaging, etc. Note, this is a frequently asked Maven interview question that you must know. What are the default values for the packaging element? If there is no packaging element defined, what is the default value for that? The valid packaging values include jar, war, ear, and POM. If no packaging value has been specified, then by default it will be a jar. What is the use of the execution element in POM file? The execution element contains the information required for the execution of a plugin. What is a project's fully qualified artifact name? Group ID, artifact ID, version. If you fail to define any information, where does your POM inherits that information from? All POMs are inherited from a parent despite explicitly defined or not. This base POM is called super POM and it contains values that are inherited by default. How profiles are specified in Maven? Profiles are specified by making use of a subset of the elements that are available in the POM itself. Course curriculum. DevOps certification training. Weekday/weekend batches. What are the elements in POM that a profile can freely modify when specified in the POM? Repositories, plugin repositories, dependencies, plugins properties, modules reporting, dependency management, distribution management. What are the benefits of storing jars/external dependencies in the local repository instead of a remote one? It uses less storage and also makes checking out a project quicker, without the need for versioning the jar files. 51. What is a system dependency? Dependency with scope system is always available and is not looked up in the repository. They are usually used to tell Maven about dependencies that are provided by the JDK or the VM. Thus, system dependencies are especially useful for resolving dependencies on artifacts that JDK normally provides. What is the use of optional dependency? You can mark any transitive dependency as optional using the optional element. As an example, A depends upon B and B depends upon C. Now B mark C as optional. Then A will not use C. What is dependency exclusion? You can exclude any transitive dependency using the exclusion element. Suppose if A depends upon B and B depends upon C, then it can be marked C as excluded. How to run the clean plugin automatically during the build? For this, you just need to place the clean plugin inside the execution tag in pom.xml file. What is the meaning of the message "You cannot have two plugin executions with the same or missing elements"? It simply means that you have executed a plugin multiple times with the same ID. To correct this, you just need to provide each execution with a unique ID. How can I discover conflicts faster? Enforcer can help developers solve dependency conflicts in Maven by analyzing all libraries declared in the POM file. The plugin uses a lot of different rules, but we are only interested in one. Dependency convergence ensures all dependencies converge to the same version. Let's configure the plugin to use that rule by writing it in our pom.xml. From the above configuration, you can execute the goal enforcer enforce via the command line of your project, mvn enforcer enforce, or by binding the goal to a Maven stage. This is extremely useful to find any dependency conflicts that might be crashing your project. Once executed, the plugin returns a list tree showing all conflicts, if any, inside the project. Dependency convergence error for log4j. Log4j 1.2.17 paths to dependency are: Enforcer writes a dependency tree, as you can see above, where the root is our project conflict info. In this case, the library log4j is having version conflicts. We have two log4j library versions, January 2nd, 17 and January 2nd, 16. Exclude Java package from dependency jar or Maven dynamically exclude class with same name from different dependencies. With the Maven Shade plugin, it is possible to exclude certain class for specific dependencies. This is configured with the help of the filters property. Here's a full configuration of this in action. Running mvn clean package will create a new jar with the a.class from art1 since the one from art2 was excluded. And then, running mvn clean packaged shade.exclude.artifact id equals art1 will keep this time a.class from the dependency art2 since the one from art1 was excluded. Read 3 different properties files in Maven. Maven profile examples to pass different parameters, server or database parameters, for different environments, dev, test, or prod. Basic profile creation example. Run on terminal $mvn package pstist. Run on terminal $mvn package, for default. Hashtag profile ID prod. $mvn package pprod. Hashtag profile ID test. $mvn package ptest. How to read or use class from jar file, or can I add jars to Maven to build class path without installing them? First approach. First, as you see, in your code you have to import the classes. To do that you need import org.example.className. Second, when you compile the source, you have to reference the jar file. Please note the difference in using and while compiling. If you are under a Unix-like operating system, javxcp org.example.jar mysource.java. If you are under Windows, javxcp org.example.jar mysource.java. Note, we can also add in Eclipse very easily by going into build path and add external dependency. Second approach. This is how we add or install a local jar. I gave some default group ID and artifact ID because they are mandatory, smiley face, or you may create local repository on your project. For example, if you have libs folder in project structure. In libs folder you should create directory structure like /group ID /artifact ID /version /artifacted version.jar. In your pom.xml you should register repository. And add dependency as usual. How to exclude jar file from one module or project. Exclusions work on the entire dependency graph below the point where they are declared. If you want to exclude project E instead of project D, simply change the exclusion to point at project E, but you don't move the exclusion down to project D. You cannot change project D's POM. If you could, you would use optional dependencies instead of exclusions, or split project D up into multiple sub-projects, each with nothing but normal dependencies. Optional tag. Other approach.